It's live! Yay! Alrighty. So this is our first ever Fandom Forward live stream, which is pretty exciting.
Woo!
I literally was at the HPA retreat all weekend and had to schedule an emergency Avengers viewing last night to get ready for this. But so I'm really excited to talk about it because I think there's definitely a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Before we start, I just want to set some ground rules to just keep in mind, that we want to have a positive fandom space and make sure that all the criticisms we have and good things that we have too, are critiques and not like personal attacks or anything.
Oh, dang.
Sorry, I got really confused because the live stream started playing in my ear and then my voice was coming at me again. So turn that off. But yeah, that we just keep everything really positive and focused on, a critical critique of the media. And yeah. So I think maybe the best thing to do would be to go through like each topic. Do you want to start there?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Why don't you start us off, Autumn? What do you want to start with?
Cool. Well, I think the one that is certainly the most popular subject regarding the film right now is definitely sexism.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one that I have seen the most online about, and the one that I probably have the most words about as well.
For sure. Yeah, I definitely picked that up as well. And it was interesting because I was with my family, and they're not really involved in these discussions and stuff. And even my brother had a couple words about some of the things that happened in the film.
Yeah.
But let's have, I don't know, Jonathan, Sam, do you have any, what do you think about the sexism things?
No, you cannot keep doing this to me, computer.
Oh.
Rogue computers. It's Ultron. That was my first cheesy joke.
Amazing. Good
You're
job.
welcome.
Good
You're
job
welcome.
connecting.
Well, while Sam's computer is a mess, what was one thing that stood out to you, Auden?
I think the Black Widow storyline was the most dramatic example of this issue in the film. And Black Widow has all the way through the Marvel Cinematic Universe been sort of either the awesome part or the really terrible part of the way that whoever is writing Marvel and directing Marvel at the time sort of tries to address that. Like Marvel goes to Black Widow for that. And I think that the way that Black Widow was treated in this story definitely was lacking in certain aspects.
Yeah.
So.
For sure.
Yeah, but it was also really nice to see Scarlet Witch sort of come into her own near the end of the film. That was exciting. And we also had some other women in the film in a way that we haven't really before, with Maria Hill and Peggy Carter kind of here in the background.
Yeah, for sure. And Helen, right?
Yeah.
I was afraid they were going to kill her off, but they didn't. That was good. Yeah, I think probably the elephant in the room, at least for me, was in particular the exchange between Bruce and Natasha, and talking about her infertility. And somehow comparing that to being a monster on the level of the Hulk, which was very strange. And just for me personally, I have a chronic illness that makes it so that I'm very likely infertile. So that was a little bit like, I was kind of immediately like, okay, this is very strange, not only from a perspective of making that connection, but also feeling like that was a very strange thing for, out of all of the things that happened to Natasha, that was the thing that she was most upset about. Seemed pretty out of character to me.
Absolutely, I agree. And I have a tendency to not back down from an argument, and so I have been in a bunch of conversations over the past few days with different people about the Natasha storyline. And one of the major arguments that I've heard in justification of that scene is that Natasha's character didn't have that element of monstrosity that would tie her into the rest of the team, because that theme of monstrosity was kind of carried through in the way that they band together to prove that they're not monsters and that they are in fact heroes. But I found it really interesting the way that that wasn't really what was important for Bruce Banner, and the fact that Natasha has killed many people, often for people she didn't she didn't know who she was doing that for, and that's one of the major narrative arcs for her in Captain America 2: The Winter Soldier, is that she has a lot of self-doubt and a lot of guilt over the fact that she didn't know whose lies she was telling. That wasn't enough for her to be tied into that story. They also had to add that in a way that I felt was both unnecessary and also really, really awful, actually, in terms of being a representation of how we think about women and how we think about women as people who are just supposed to have children. And especially from an actual superhero film where you know that many people are looking up to these characters and using these literal heroes as an example of how to treat other people and how to do what's right.
Definitely. I know Jonathan and Sam are having mic problems, but if you have anything you want to say in the chat too, I can narrate for you as well.
I'm trying to switch. I'm using my laptop right now, so I'm switching to my phone.
Okay, cool.
Hopefully that'll be better.
Sounds
I'm
good.
probably going to leave for about a few seconds, and then I'll be back, hopefully, with it working this time.
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
All right. So I will be back. I'm giving you a thumbs up, but you can't see me. So.
I also think, another issue with the Natasha storyline is also that idea that Natasha wasn't, an interesting enough character without adding that. The fact that people are using that as an argument for that scene existing represents something that is kind of awful about Black Widow's character, that they haven't set her up with a strong enough character development and strengths and flaws and an interesting nature for her to have that without just a single moment of weird pining between her and Bruce.
Yeah, that was so strange.
Yeah.
Ships be ships, but that just seems so random to me. I had a really hard time with it the entire movie.
Yeah, I mean, even personally from a writing perspective, I feel like that relationship came together in a way that was so sudden that it didn't feel natural or engaging at all. It just seemed confusing.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the fact that Natasha, after becoming a love interest, spends the entire rest of the movie being saved.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And then prompting her love interest into his heroic moment.
Yep. Oh, God, that's a really good point. Sorry, just catching up. Katrina and Katie for just joining us. We started with talking about sexism issues, and so we are, of course, talking about the particular scene with Natasha referring to her infertility as a monstrosity, and also talking about the the strangeness of her relationship with Bruce and how that all played out throughout the movie. So if you have any thoughts on that subject or anything else with sexism, feel free to chime in.
Mm-hmm. I think another thing that kind of plays in there but has sort of flown under the radar is that really nasty prima nocta joke that Joss Whedon managed to get in there.
I saw things about that, but I think I missed it in the actual movie.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what he was counting on, or whoever wrote it, you know. Just the fact that that line was thrown in so flippantly, and then that it didn't even get a good audience response makes me wonder why it was present at all.
Yeah. Katie, it looked like you were starting to say something. Oh, your mic might be off. Katie has many deep thoughts. All right, she's trying to get a mic. We're having so many mic problems. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, that was definitely when I left the theater. That was the first thing I thought about. Was this discussion. I was like, oh man, we're gonna have so much sexism stuff to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, the whole way that Natasha is treated, I feel like that really fits into Joss Whedon's kind of what has been described as Joss Whedon's outdated model of feminism.
Which we did talk about in the toolkit, I think.
Which is discussed in the toolkit. In which Joss Whedon typically takes the female character and then in some way removes her agency. In this case, she's, you know, forced to discuss her sterilization, forced to relive trauma through mind control, captured, and then it's only after that she's proved her strength in that way that she can be seen as a strong female character, even if the male characters don't have to go through that same situation. And then, even then, she's only this very specific model of a strong character, and that strong character is specifically like a very sexually attractive one.
Right.
Alright, I think I got the mic working now.
Yeah.
Hooray!
So I was gonna, kind of going back to the sterilization in Natasha, I think a lot of people don't understand, like, because people are like, okay, well, like, obviously, you know, it's just something Natasha thought about herself, but I think if you look at the narrative and the way it's structured, you have this scene where, like, Bruce is confronting his issues with, like, you know, his Hulk side and all that, and, like, you know, literally a monster, and it's paralleled to Natasha's inability to have children, so it's not just Natasha saying that she feels like a monster, like, the narrative literally parallels their two like selves and their conflict between them and their superhero self as like monstrosities, and that's part of the problem. Like, it's not just Natasha says this one line, it's the way that this scene is set up, it enforces Natasha's view of herself.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's also really what ties her into the rest of the team in that sense, because they all have that moment of questioning whether or not they're heroes because of some element of monstrosity, and what they use to tie Natasha into that is that moment rather than what we see about her in Captain America 2 instead.
And it would have been so easy to use, you know, the other things that they did to her and her other actions. It was kind of unnecessary.
Absolutely.
Any other thoughts about sexism stuff? I want to try to, like, make sure that we don't dwell too long on particular things, but
that's the part that
I know that was the major thing. We'll see how much stuff we have for the other two, and then
I mean, I think, like, the other thing that's interesting to me there is the stuff that's happened outside of the film, pre-release and post-release too.
Yeah.
So the way that different people have responded to Black Widow's arc in the film, the whole thing with Joss Whedon on Twitter, and then also the Avengers press tour and all of the comments that were made during that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely been really interesting to watch. And I mean interesting in not a like cool, interesting way.
It's definitely been interesting to delve into full force via Twitter and Tumblr.
For sure. I mean, I think everyone's probably seen a lot of this stuff with, some of the cast making the like slut shaming comments, stuff with kind of the fan reactions to things. There was probably the coolest thing I saw, to add some lightness to our
was it the SNL spiral.
No, actually, I saw something posted about that, but I haven't gotten a chance to watch it. I really need to.
It's so great. They make like a Black Widow trailer, but they give it a treatment that a female superhero would get, and they turn it into a rom-com.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's pretty funny.
That's awesome. I was thinking of it was actually a Cosmopolitan interview where they asked Mark Ruffalo all of these questions about like his diet and like what he wore, like all the things that they would normally ask Scarlett Johansson, which was really refreshing and cool to see them doing something like that.
Absolutely, yeah. I think regardless of what people's opinions are on the film itself, or on the comments that the actors made, whether they were a big deal or not a big deal, it's definitely brought a lot more attention to the way that characters are treated and the way that the treatment of those characters represents and echoes and affects the treatment of women outside of fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people are talking about this who wouldn't normally think to talk about it before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe that's kind of a good thing that we are having that conversation about, maybe it's not the best way it's not the best way to initiate that conversation, Like,
right.
It wasn't under the best circumstances, but at least we're having it.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, I'm really frustrated by... I mean, I think Chris Evans' response was the best that could have happened. His apology there. But I am really frustrated by the fact that the Avengers actors and the Avengers press team doesn't seem to recognize the importance of having these like actual representations of superheroes behave in a way that's socially aware.
Especially considering, so I work at a library, and so I see a lot of what little kids are into, and little kids love these characters and love the Avengers, and those are some of our most popular books right now. Like, we've got an Age of Ultron thing, and it's like flying off the shelf right now. And like, if a kid finds out like about this stuff and there's no formal like this is not okay kind of thing, it's like, oh well, okay, Captain America said it, I can say it.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's really disappointing to see people that are representing, like, literal superheroes. I mean, obviously they're not superheroes in real life, but, like, there's...
But they're the face of those characters.
Yeah, there's a responsibility there.
I did notice one of our Fandom Forward buddies, Heroic Girls on Twitter. They've been doing some cool signal boosting of pointing out whenever Natasha is not present in merchandise.
Yeah, I found that really cool.
They've been using this, I think it's hashtag Where's Natasha. So that's been a cool thing to see other people start up.
Yeah.
I'm currently Googling that hashtag.
It's really neat.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, when I buy my alarm clock, I want everybody on it. Or at least one character or all of them. No compromises here.
Yeah.
Oh, some of these tweets are great.
I think, yeah, I mean, there have been a lot of really awesome conversations that have come out of this, but as far as the actual press tour itself, I think it was kind of a disaster. And then certain elements of the movie were not my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was something that really got me angry when I was watching the movie, and it's in the party scene at the very beginning. Maria Hill's like, "Where are all the ladies?" And I'm like, exactly, where are the female characters in this movie? It's like, he has this joke about how, oh, look how like much of a sausage fest this Avengers thing is. It's like, it's not funny. It's just, why would you even, it's not. It's something that makes me angry. It's played as a joke in the movie.
Well, and you notice, like, they bring back, you know, because there's always the argument about, like, how many actors they can pay. But they brought back so many, like, Idris Elba was there for a hot second. I don't remember Thor's, the doctor's name at the moment.
Yeah. That guy.
But he was there for a hot second, and, like, if you could get those two, why couldn't you get Jane?
Yeah.
You know?
Like, characters who already have storylines established very well. It would have been fine to just throw them in for a scene and pay the actors for one day.
Right.
But do we want to address the thing with Joss Whedon on Twitter? Because we don't have to, but I think it's really interesting.
Maybe let's go on to the other two and then come back to it if we have time, if that...
Solid. Sounds good to me.
Okay. Either or. Thoughts on ableism or political engagement?
With the political engagement and awareness, I thought it was really interesting how, like, I have a basic understanding of the general comic universe, like the backstories with, like, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver and those characters. But I thought it was really interesting how they used, they showed that, like, it was a Stark missile that killed their parents, and that was why they did this. And they showed them, like, pictures, like, really briefly, like, they flashed them up on the screen of them protesting at protests and stuff like that. And, like, I thought that was a very accurate way of portraying how people nowadays, like, in our world, are sometimes drawn to things that aren't good for them or aren't good for others necessarily.
I think I totally missed the protest shot. That's really interesting.
Yeah, they showed them, like, chanting and, like, pumping their fists at something. I don't know what, but...
And Wanda and Pietro were also volunteers for the program.
Yeah.
They chose that because they thought that they were doing the right thing. They thought that they were putting their support in the right place. And I thought that the anti-Avengers graffiti in that city was also really interesting. Both from a Marvel Universe perspective, the way that public opinion is starting to shift away from heroes and starting to shift away from the Avengers and what they represent, but also just kind of, I wish that they had focused more on that, because I think that that is really interesting. Because we do see, you know, the Avengers cause a lot of destruction. They do a lot of things in the name of saving the world and saving New York City and all this stuff. I mean, we kind of see a little bit of that in Daredevil too, that they're kind of trying to rebuild after the amazing saving job that the Avengers did.
Well, I think that's really interesting because the MCU doesn't have a lot of the, like, street level characters. It's got the Avengers, and it's got a lot of, like, the cosmic threat to the universe kind of characters, but you know, there isn't the characters that are, like, stopping crime on a person-to-person level, like, oh, someone's getting mugged, I'm gonna go help them. And it's just kind of interesting because, like, I think I would feel uncomfortable with this strange group of individuals that like deals with these giant threats beyond understanding, and like if there wasn't a personal level to it too, because like superheroes in the comics are really different than superheroes in the MCU, and there's a lot more of them in the comics, and I just think that's the public perception part of that is really interesting.
Absolutely, yeah. And the way that then that public perception leads people to get involved, either involved changing the way that the Avengers work. That part of that, I just read a bunch of comics that kind of start to touch on that, or fighting against those characters that we unequivocally associate as heroes, and sort of gives more background to those villains and the idea that those people are still trying to protect themselves and their family, and they're upset about being the victims of these conflicts. And I mean, even at the end of this film, they save all the people of the city, but the entire town is destroyed. Like, there's quite a bit of damage done as a result of the actions that are carried out in this film.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting, the way that major conflicts that major conflicts affect people who don't necessarily want to be involved, and how that kind of pushes people to action.
Mm-hmm.
And like the
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, in like 2012, I looked it up, so I want to make sure I got the right number. There was a group that actually went through and calculated the amount of damage that, like money-wise, that the Battle of whatever Manhattan you want to call it.
Yeah.
That's Percy Jackson. I'm just kidding. Whatever the Avengers did in New York in the first movie, that thing, it would have cost, in addition to like thousands of lives, over $160 billion.
Wow.
To repair all that stuff. Like, to put that in perspective, 9/11 cost $83 billion to repair, and Hurricane Katrina $90 billion, and the tsunami in Japan was $122 billion.
Wow, that's yeah.
Yeah.
I would be upset.
Just a little.
Just a little bit.
I mean, I guess that's, if they're following kind of Civil War in the comics, I guess that's part of what's going on here.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. I think that's part of the things that make Ultron so effective, because all of the damage that was caused by the aliens wasn't really the Avengers' fault, but this is totally their fault. Just completely. They created the villain that caused all of this damage, so everything they do to fix it is still entirely on them.
And that's another interesting idea, too, that Tony Stark is trying to help. Like, he's trying to bring about protection. He's trying to help people the way that the Avengers always have done. But it ends up that he's doing just about the same thing that Hydra does in Cap 2, is that they're trading in freedom for safety. And it doesn't end up so well in Cap 2, and it doesn't end up going so well in Ultron's case either.
I was kind of disappointed that they didn't have Steve point out that parallel more and make a bigger deal out of it, because it was such an obvious parallel.
Yeah.
That was kind of interesting. Again, interesting in a bad way.
Man, there were a lot of things that they didn't have Steve do.
Yeah, poor Steve. We'll have to save our character fandom critiques for a whole separate live stream. Because there was a lot of
Auden talked about Steve Rogers a ton live stream. That's my favorite conversation topic.
That'll be our side live stream, our bonus.
Good.
Kind of going along with this, though, it kind of disappointed me that Tony wasn't held more accountable. Like, he gets pretty at the ends. No one's like, okay, Tony, like, really? I mean, like, a little bit, but then, Vision was created, so I guess it's all fine now.
But he feels bad about it.
Yeah, but I don't care about his feelings when he's causing like this much like, I care about his feelings, like I care about the character, but it's still like it's disappointing that he got off so easy. Because he went behind everyone's backs, and it's entirely his fault.
Do you suppose that there are parallels we could make to other political situations, perhaps, where powerful individuals may not see as many consequences for their actions as other individuals?
Just give me a couple days and I'll get
hashtag nonpartisan.
I mean, I think that is definitely an interesting thing to explore. The way that Tony Stark gets out of a lot of stuff by being very wealthy and being very self-assured and being in these positions of power and privilege. And we see that all the way through, not just this film, but all of the films that he's been in, is that he doesn't really have to face that many consequences because of who he is. He's Tony Stark. He's Iron Man. And so the things that even other Avengers would have to face and would have to own up to, he doesn't have to because he's Tony Stark. He's
right. Did you notice that there was the scare that Bruce was, that some people were calling for his arrest, but nobody was like worried about Iron Man. Like they did, like Iron Man took out a whole building at least. Like they did similar amounts of damage.
Yeah, it was not just the Hulk there.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that.
Go ahead, Katrina.
Oh, okay. Well, I think that battle was like really important because it just shows the amount of privilege that Tony has, because he just has a fun setup for everything that breaks. Just,
doesn't he like make a joke before destroying the building, like, how quickly can I buy this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he's like buying the building as he goes to destroy it.
Well, at least then he's destroying his own property.
Yeah, exactly.
A little bit better.
Man, isn't that a commentary on economic inequality, if I ever saw one? Have to remember that for our odds and our favorite campaign later.
Right, whatever you want, as long as it's yours.
Mm-hmm.
I think that also kind of, I mean, the way that Bruce Banner is treated, I think that kind of ties into the ableism section of the toolkit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sneeze. Sorry.
Salute. Yeah, talk more about that. What do you think?
I mean, like, well, I think this film is interesting because it's sort of difficult to talk about because the film isn't really set up to have that conversation. Like, I think that as far as sexism and engagement goes, it is set up to have those conversations, even if not in quite the context that I would like to talk about them. But while the parallels between Bruce Banner's experiences as the Hulk and as someone who becomes the Hulk, I mean, the language doesn't really fit there. That even though those parallels are really clear and are specifically set up as even more than parallels in the films, it's still kind of brushed over because those conversations aren't as exciting and they don't translate well into an action movie. The only way to do that is to have Hulk smash a bunch of stuff and then Bruce Banner feel repentant. But the way that the team treats Bruce, I think, is really iffy and made me feel uncomfortable during the movie. That's consistently something, but it seemed even more apparent here to me because there weren't really any other characters that fit that element. Because they're all just kind of like, yes, well, you go sit in the corner and kind of recover on your own. We're not going to talk to you. And also, we've created this system that is literally prepared to capture you. Don't worry about it. Natasha's here now. Everything's. It was just the whole thing just felt really uncomfortable to me. Especially when they could have done so many other things there. Like, having a team behind him, I think that would be enormously beneficial for Bruce Banner. Like, they could have done so much to make life so much better for him as a human being, but they didn't really. And the addition of the Scarlet Witch as a character and the way that she affected each team member and the massive effect that she had on Bruce more than anyone in the team, like, I just wish that they had given him more support there and that the narrative had focused more on the way that he was affected by that. And
well, and the ways that his agency was taken away from him too.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's not a new theme, but I thought especially, forgetting for a moment how weird the relationship was, to have somebody who he was clearly, they're like developing feelings for each other, supposedly, and they are kind of in this more trusting relationship. So then to have Natasha at that point kind of force him into that, especially problematic.
Yes, absolutely. That was very distressing to me.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I really want to know what the Scarlet Witch showed Bruce to make him like that, because we get that insight with all the other characters she does that too. But we just kind of understand that he already has issues with his brain, but we don't know what sets him off, and that would have been really helpful as like a development to give him more of a character.
Yeah.
And also to tie him into the other characters too, so that it isn't just like the same thing that we see Tony Stark doing in Avengers 1, where he like pokes him with something to see if he'll go off, but that he's prompted into that by the same sort of situation that leads the others to break.
Yeah.
But nope.
Yeah,
Not
I mean,
necessary.
The other characters, like, demonize Bruce for something he can't control, and it kind of happens the same way, like, within the structure of the movie. It's like, it's important. It's just really frustrating when, like, you don't see what Bruce is going through, and then afterwards it's like, okay, I guess everyone's upset now, but you don't get any insight into, like, what is going on with him, and he's, like, singled out and left alone all the time, and yeah, it's just, it's so uncomfortable, a lot of that. Because it's like, are you guys supposed to be friends, or...
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the setup of having Natasha, calm him down twice, and then the third time push him over I don't even have words to describe how unhappy that makes me. Because I think, again, that represents that same kind of idea that, like, these are literal superheroes, and this is setting this weird sort of situation where it's like, well, it's okay, because they needed him to do that. Like, they needed him to be to destroy things, and so for their benefit, it was okay that they did that to him without his permission or him being aware of what was going on.
And I was kind of unclear, and maybe other people have ideas about this. I wasn't sure if him not coming back at the end was supposed to be him upset about that break of trust, or him kind of sequestering himself again because he was taking on the guilt for it. That was unclear.
I think it was kind of purposefully left unclear. I mean, I don't really have an answer for that.
Yeah, I mean, the end of the movie just kind of felt like, let's get a lot of these other Avengers out of the way so we can show you, like, the new Avengers lineup. So it's like, okay, I guess Tony's leaving for some reason, and Thor, like, disappears into the sky, and Hulk just decided not to come back.
I mean, they're not gonna look 25 to 30 forever, so we gotta keep them moving.
But Sam Wilson's there, so that's good.
That is good.
And now we have a space for my dream team, which is Ms. Marvel and Squirrel Girl and Kate Bishop, and so, you know, problem solved.
I did also, the only other kind of big ableism thing that stood out to me was, and I don't think we talked about this in depth in the toolkit, but I know it was mentioned, was Tony and his PTSD. And going from Iron Man 3 to this movie, it was kind of like they acted like that was supposed to be, like, cured at the end of Iron Man 3. And never really addressed kind of, like, to me it seems like it would be pretty obvious that that his kind of like reckless decision in starting Ultron makes sense in a context of this is somebody who's still kind of dealing with that fear. And they even had him, like, kind of back in the portal in his vision with Scarlet Witch, but they never directly addressed that, which was kind of a missed thing.
I agree, yeah. The fact that he was still acting out of that sense of, like, feeling very unsafe as a result of what had happened to him and things that he had done. But then the fact that, I mean, firstly, the fact that that led to him basically becoming, or at least creating, the villain of the film. That's kind of iffy in and of itself. The fact that the thing that he did in order to respond to what he had been through led to him creating the major danger that they face. Yeah.
It's just like, they could have made that connection a lot clearer if that's what they were trying to do. Because I feel like a lot of times in this movie, it's like, it feels like they are trying to draw some parallel or make some connection here, but it's just not clear, and I can't follow. And it's like, that could have been Tony's narrative in this movie, and it would have made him a lot more sympathetic, and it would have made, like, the whole Ultron thing make a lot more sense, instead of, like, yeah, guys, let's just build a robot.
And it also... Yeah, it also would have made the parallels between him and Cap more interesting, and made that conflict more interesting, too.
Yeah. It just feels like a missed opportunity that ended up, like, being kind of weird and iffy and gross.
Yeah.
And the fact that part of their goal was to, like, leave a lot of these things open to interpretation. And, like, because we're all seeing it in slightly different ways, because we're all different people, we all had different experiences, and I think that could be part of what they were going for, to leave it more relatable to the viewer instead of being like, this is exactly how we want you to think about it. They're leaving it more open-ended so that we can all, like, because I saw, like, when they were all leaving, it reminded me of at the end of the first Avengers, when Nick Fury was talking to that council of shadowy looking people. I don't know who they are. Tell me that's not an accurate description of what they look like.
It totally is.
It's holograms.
But they said, well, what will we do? Like, what will they? How will we get them back? They're all scattered across the world. And Nick Fury goes, they'll come back when we need them, because we'll need them, or whatever he said in his Samuel L. Jackson, like, awesome way of speaking. But, like, I thought of it like that. I thought they were all going their separate ways until the Earth needed them again. So I thought they kind of did that more like Bruce sequestering himself for now so he could keep, you know, people he cares about safe and stuff like that. I didn't think it was like they're getting rid of the new Avengers, because I was under the impression that they were all going to be in the next movie. So either I'm really wrong and I'm going to be really sad now, or
no, I think you're right, and I think that's a good segue actually into I wanted to make sure we kind of talked about the fandom forward and fan activism experience as a whole. And I think, you kind of, thanks for being the voice of reason and reminder that not everybody has worked on a 30-page toolkit for these issues. And potentially they would like this movie to, also appeal to the audience that they think they have, which is debatable as far as who that audience is versus who they think they are displaying the movies to.
The only people who saw this movie.
Right.
It was made for us.
It was just for the fandom forward team.
Absolutely.
It was just us five spending billions of dollars.
Clearly, it was not made for us, based on our discussion tonight. But I think it's important to think about, part of being a fan activist is, thinking beyond the surface level message and really making those connections yourselves. And so because this is the last official meeting of the Fandom Forward Marvel Cinematic Universe Part 1 team, I want to take some time to hear from everybody, what was the experience like for you, and kind of how it's changed or not changed your perspective on things moving forward, and how you think about what it means to be a fan activist in that. Sorry, that was a really big question for all of you. I put you on the spot.
It's okay.
Have a moment to contemplate.
I have to leave in a few minutes. I have school tomorrow, so I'll go first.
Okay.
But I think I've had such a good time working on this toolkit. I got to do something that I never thought that I would get to be able to do this year. Especially because, it's senior year. Things are crazy. Scrambling to graduate and everything like that. I say scrambling to graduate. I'm not scrambling to graduate. I'm pretty safe. But it's been such a cool thing, and I did this along with a class I'm taking through a local community college called Women in Literature, where we read works that are normally marginalized because they weren't written by men at the time that they were published, and in the Middle Ages.
I'm on the live stream.
Not a whole lot of published women works, and so that class along with this toolkit really gave me this whole new perspective on how to look at things and how to critically think about what I see and what I hear other people say about the same thing. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. I'm giving snaps.
Yeah. And I actually got to use this toolkit. I used it as a chance to talk to a lot of my friends about particularly sexism, because that's what I made my video about. Was about sexism in Marvel and how other people see it. And it was really interesting to see how other people that are my age and that I know how they feel about the same things that I do. And it was really cool to see that it's not just a fan activist who's obsessed with Marvel that sees these things in Marvel films. A lot of people see them. And I don't think that they're the studios and stuff give their viewers enough credit. We can figure this out. We recognize that when you make a toy set, that the only one not there is the only girl on the team. People notice that. And it's not just the activists. And I hope that gets better really soon.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam.
You're welcome. I hope that wasn't super rambly.
No, it was beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Go ahead.
Yes, and with that, I must go so I don't fail my AP exams this coming week. So.
Okay. Good night, Sam.
Bye, you lovely Marvel Fandom Forward people.
Good luck.
Thank you.
I'm actively hiding from my AP exams, so.
Same, I got one on Friday.
That's also a really good technique. I've been using that since I've been watching Parks and Rec for like. Let's not talk about how long I've been watching Parks and Rec today.
Good.
That is an excellent use of time. Okay.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Katie, I think you were gonna go.
Yeah, I'll go.
Okay.
So I was super psyched to get to work on this because it's something that I've cared about for a really long time. I've been a massive comic book geek since like 8th grade, and I've fallen like headfirst back into my comic book geekdom after this. Like it's kind of embarrassing. So in 8th grade, I made a video for my class about sexism in comic books. And it was something that I cared about, and I made this presentation for my class, and I think I freaked them out a little bit. So it's been something I've been thinking about for a long time. But it was really, really cool to get to talk to other people who have also been thinking about these things. And then I'm super lucky. I mean, it's been great like building this, and I'm super lucky because I'm a chapter organizer. So I get to do this with my chapter. So we've been having discussions about this, and so we're working on a video about sexism. So I called each of them out, and I'm filming them and their reactions to representation and what they want and who they want to see in the MCU and what they care about. And I'm gonna work on editing it this weekend, I think. And so it's been really great to build it, and it's been really great to get to talk to other people about it. And I'm really proud of this thing. You should have, when it came out and I saw the link and I looked at it, I was like on the street with my family and I literally squealed and jumped up in the air. Like, it looks so pretty! So, I'm really proud of this thing, and I hope that it helps foster more discussion in, the coming days for people, and days, months, weeks, whatever. And I'm excited to get to do it with my chapter. So
Awesome. Yeah, definitely keep us posted on how that all goes.
yeah.
Katrina, you got some thoughts?
I enjoyed this because I'm kind of like isolated in my love of engaging in things and like thinking critically, because my friends will go to Marvel movies with me, but if I go, hey, did you see like that line in that second scene where they said this, they just stare at me and they're like, it's a movie, Katrina, just a movie. But it's never just a movie, and I like that other people get that, and I have this resource to talk about it with other people, and that we've made something that makes everything more accessible for it as well. So I'm really proud of it and what we've done.
I am so glad that you found your people, because it's pretty great. Well, Director Auden, do you have closing words you would like to say about the MCU toolkit?
Like crying kind of
words?
If you
Make
want
us all
to
cry.
no.
Make us all
Avengers.
cry.
I'm like all teary after those three, God.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I have just had a really amazing time working on this project, and honestly, I was really worried about it at the start because the way that I connect with the Marvel Universe is very specific. I pretty much really care about Captain America, and then everything else is kind of along for the ride. And Ms. Marvel. So I was a little worried about how I would make those connections with people who really care about all of it, and how it would be running a project like this about something that I do really care about with people who really care about it. Because I have a tendency to kind of be like, if it isn't perfect, it can't happen. But I think we created this really amazing thing together, and everything that I've heard from people who have read it, whether those people are educators or they're Marvel fans or they're fans of social change, it has really resonated with them and they found something interesting and relevant to them. And I think that is really as a result of the hard work and love and care that went into this from so many different people from so many different places and backgrounds within the Marvel Universe, different characters that they care about, and then also different lived experiences. And I think that is super cool because we've created something together that we couldn't, any of us, create on our own in much the same way that the Avengers created.
I was so hoping you were going there. It's like, oh man, this is gonna be so great.
In much the same way that the Avengers create a team where they can accomplish things they couldn't accomplish on their own, and they can connect to people all around the world. And I just love you guys a lot.
Well, Auden, you're Cap then, if we're the Avengers. So
my forever goal.
Captain America.
My forever goal is to be the kind of person Steve Rogers would be proud to know.
That's beautiful.
I think that's everyone's goal. He is pretty
snaps. Oh, Autumn. Well, I second everything everybody has said. It's been awesome having you all working on this, and I am incredibly proud of the work that your team did. And I was absolutely proud to release it under the HPA name, and I know that the rest of the HPA staff felt exactly the same way. They've all been so impressed with the work, and I'm really excited to see how it continues to grow, and to see how everybody gets to use it in their own lives, and hopefully made some people, become fan activists who might not have been before. So thank you for all of your work. Thanks to everybody who has participated. And hopefully we see you all for the inevitable Hero Toolkit Part 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys so much.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.